Welcome to another episode of Boom or Bust, your home for NFL Draft Talk. I'm your host, Terry. Today, talking a little about Mike Mayock. So, some people might forget, this is first and foremost an NFL Draft Talk channel. NFL Draft is what I'm here to do. We'll see how it goes this year, but January typically is when I get started. And I was getting prepared to kind of get into that mode. And then this news dropped, so I had to have my comments on it. Because Mike Mayock, if you listened to any of my draft stuff last year, if you've seen any of my stuff before that, you know Mike Mayock is a huge influence. One of the very few guys I like. There's a lot of draft people out there. And honestly, there's about 2 or 3 that I actually value their opinion. Outside of that, not so much. And that's just for personal reasons. Some people, have different philosophies, but for the most part with the draft, you gotta kind of have your own direction. You can't really follow anybody else. But I would say Mike Mayock is pretty in line with most of the things I usually, think. And so, and he has a good way of delivering, and I think he has the same philosophies I do. So anyway, Mike Mayock has always been a big, follow for me. And recently heard he might be getting a Raiders job, or it's probably likely. And that's crazy. That's crazy. During the draft process, there's usually some, curveballs. There's always some crazy stuff that happens. But to kick it off like this, to lose one of the biggest voices in the NFL draft community, it's kind of crazy. Now, I would say it hasn't been the same for me in the last 5 years or so. When I started the whole draft process, or at least officially doing like online podcasts, at that time I still had NFL Network, was very heavy into all those things. But of course, recently in the last few years, I haven't really had NFL Network, so I haven't had a chance to listen to him as much. I would still catch him here and there, and I would definitely still read his position stuff when he released it. But as you know, Mike Mayock, as time went on, became more exclusive. He only did one mock draft. He only did his positional rankings every now and then, which is fine. Nobody wants to do all these stupid mock drafts. But, so I still try to follow him as best I could, but I didn't really see Mike Mayock a whole bunch. But still, I think everybody would say he's one of the biggest voices in the community. And so to see him, and a lot of people joke and talked about him getting the job all the time in the NFL. And I was like, okay, that might be cool. Now that it's here, I can't say I feel that great about it, to be honest, because the situation, it's a little rocky, because you got John Gruden. Something weird happened in Oakland with Reggie McKenzie. He was a family friend, and he had been there for a while. And I remember they hired Gruden. It just all seemed like, McKenzie was safe. But then they ended up firing him mid-season. And people are talking about the trade with Khalil Mack and the trade with Amari Cooper. But those are people that Gruden didn't value. And so I don't think that anybody approved those trades with the idea in mind that McKenzie's going rogue. We don't want to do this. I'm pretty sure people are on board. And so if they were on board, I still don't get why McKenzie was fired, especially like in the middle of the season, like end of the season. They got a real bad record. Okay. But and then what is firing the GM in the middle of the season going to do? Like, the GM isn't making the game plans. It's not really going to change the output of the game. So something weird happened there. And we know John Gruden's a control freak. We know that he wants to make the personnel decisions. And from everything we hear, I don't know what's true, is that Gruden had his own circle. McKenzie wasn't part of that circle. And so, now you're talking about bringing in Mike Mayock. And I'm wondering, how is that going to mesh with John Gruden? I'm sure they worked with each other or crossed paths before, One was NFL Network and one was ESPN, but I'm sure they crossed paths before. But how's that really going to work with any new GM, but namely Mike Mayock, who has never been in the NFL? As much as we love his draft knowledge and all those things, he's never been anything in the NFL, let alone a GM. And so, part of the GM duties is managing the cap and everything. It's not just, the talent evaluation. And so he hasn't been a scout with a team. Not that I know, maybe he was, but even if he was a scout, he hasn't been any other level of position in the front office. And so to just jump right to GM, that seems almost like a figurehead move where the fans can kind of be appeased that we got a big name personality, but John Gruden's going to make the decisions. Maybe John Gruden asks, the opinion, or maybe he has Mayock work with scouts, but overall it seems like Mayock isn't really going to be running the show. And if he does think he's going in there to run the show, I think it's going to be a clash, because why would he have a say over a Super Bowl winning coach when he hasn't ever worked in the NFL? And so that's just interesting to me. And then on top of that, Mike Mayock is 60. He's just now getting into the game on the NFL side, where again, he's been a TV personality, a scout, the draft expert guru, all that's fine. But when you actually in the chair, making the decisions, making the moves, and you've never done it before, and you've never been in that room before, I don't know. This seems awkward to me. As much fun as it was, be like, yeah, they should just get Mayock as a GM. I never really honestly considered it, because I'm pretty sure he hasn't worked in the front office before. I know he's a coach's son. I know he knows a lot about football, but he hasn't even been on the coaching staff in the NFL. And so I just don't see where the rubber's going to meet the road with this decision. And, again, it's not a selfish thing of saying, I don't want Mike Mayock to go. I definitely want him to get this opportunity if that's what he wants to do. I just don't see this working out well at all. And so I think he'll be the first person to be scapegoated should something go wrong. Gruden's got the 10-year contract. We already saw what they did to Reggie. So I feel bad. If Mayock was going to do this, I would like to have seen him do it in a different situation. Overall, I don't know how well it's going to work, but I definitely don't think it's going to work well with the Raiders. So there's that. And the last thing I'll say, because this really grinds my gears, it's not even draft related, kinda, not really, is the firing of the NFL coaches, man. The NFL is trying to become the NBA. Maybe I'll make a separate episode about that, but it used to be some common courtesy where you wait till Black Monday. Now they just firing people right after games in the middle of the night. Like, y'all couldn't just wait till Monday, man. And some of these firings are ridiculous, but yeah, I'll get to that later. So anyway, that's it from me. So go to the comment section. Let me know what you think about Mike Mayock taking the Raiders job as the GM. Comment, share it around, get the convo started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, thanks for listening.